Cardiovascular training is any exercise that you do for an extended period of time with an elevated heart rate. So an extended period of time would be over 10 minutes and up to several hours, or even a day, or even a little bit more than a day sometimes. Okay. Now, cardiovascular training is very important because it not only prevents diseases or helps prevent diseases like type 2 diabetes and heart disease, but it also means that you can do lots of other activities without even thinking about it. If you have friends that say, hey, would you like to go hiking this weekend? You can go, sure, and you don't have to worry about how high the mountain is because you know you'll probably be able to make it to the top. Or if they were like, hey, would you like to go to the beach this weekend? Then you can say, sure, no problem, and go down to the beach. And if there's a long nature trail for you to get to the beach, then you don't have to worry about it. Okay? If you like to play sports with a little bit of intensity that you don't play necessarily very often, like if they say, hey, let's go play ultimate frisbee this weekend, then you don't have to worry about whether or not you're going to be too tired or whether or not you can keep up. If you have good cardiovascular endurance, then you will be able to keep up at these type of events. And that's why cardiovascular training is so important. Cardiovascular training is exercise where your heart rate is elevated for an extended period of time. So an extended period of time, like we talked about, is for 10 minutes or longer. Preferably 20 to 30 minutes. That's the sweet spot to get the beginnings of a good aerobic program. Heart rate is a little bit trickier. Now, there are lots of formulas for you to figure out what your heart rate is. Unfortunately, the ones that are actually accurate require you to do some sort of a VO2 max test or a stress test where they figure out what your max heart rate is, or they take your resting heart rate and your max heart rate, and then we can figure out using the heart rate reserve method what your heart rate should be. Now, not everyone has access to these types of tests, so we prefer to use the rating of perceived exertion, which is basically just you using your own experience and giving your exercise a number on a scale from 1 to 10. So 1 is you're watching TV and not doing anything. 10 is you're working so hard you feel like you're going to vomit. Now, if you're doing a cardio program, then you're going to be between a 5 and an 8, depending on what you're doing, what your goals are, and whether or not you're at risk for having a heart attack or something like that. Okay, so when you're doing your exercise programs, you probably need to be at least a 5 for it to be effective. And if you go if you go to higher than an 8, then you're going to be in your anaerobic energy system, which is not effective or as effective at training your aerobic system, and you won't be able to go for nearly as long of a period of time. As you're doing your exercises, so this could be cycling, swimming, running, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, anything that gets your heart rate up and where it stays elevated for the extended period of time, I would consider cardiovascular or aerobic training and will help you improve your endurance. In terms of how much you should be doing over the course of a week, that really depends on what your goals are. If you're just trying to be a healthier person, then probably 3 or 4 times a week would be your best bet, and I would do a variable intensity. So what I mean by that is some days you're just going for a walk and that's very easy. Other days you're going for a more intense style run or a cycle or something like that where you're definitely keeping your heart rate closer to that RPE of 8. Okay, so that's how you train your cardiovascular system.